You know that moment when your cat finally curls up beside you after spending the whole day pretending you don't exist? And somehow, the entire world suddenly gets quiet. Your breathing slows down, your thoughts stop spinning, and for the first time since the morning started, your body actually relaxes. If you know that feeling exactly, then this video might make you feel deeply understood. Let me ask you something. When your cat casually knocks your coffee off the counter, looks you straight in the eyes, and doesn't even blink, do you get angry, or do you just sit there, quietly admiring the pure audacity of it? If you pick the second option, well, congratulations. You're about to understand something important about how your mind works. Because here's the thing nobody really tells you about being a cat person. It isn't actually about personality. It's about the way your nervous system processes the world. Some people regulate themselves through activity, through interaction, through constant engagement with the outside world. They rely on feedback. They feel comfortable when there's movement, communication, structure. Dogs are perfect for them. Dogs initiate contact. They mirror excitement. They keep emotional energy flowing. But other nervous systems work very differently. They regulate through stillness, through predictability, through the absence of pressure. A cat doesn't rush toward you to release energy. It simply settles into a space and allows you to settle beside it. There's no expectation to respond, no pressure to perform, no need to manage someone else's emotional state. And for people whose nervous systems spend most of the day anticipating things, monitoring themselves, reading every room they walk into, that kind of quiet presence means everything. When someone says, "I don't like dogs, they're just too much," what they're often describing is overstimulation. And when they say, "I like cats," they're peaceful. What they're really describing is regulation. Cat people aren't choosing distance from connection. They're choosing environments where their bodies can finally slow down, where vigilance softens, where the nervous system can downshift, where rest doesn't require performance. And once you understand this, a lot of things suddenly begin to make sense. The bond cat people feel with cats isn't just calming, it feels safe, in a way human relationships often don't. Human relationships carry invisible expectations. You're expected to respond quickly, to explain what you feel, to reassure the other person, to match their emotional intensity. Even affection can come with pressure. Why aren't you more expressive? Why don't you need me the way I need you? For people who are sensitive, observant, or easily overstimulated, this constant emotional negotiation becomes exhausting. Cats don't function that way. A cat never assumes it has automatic access to you. Its affection is offered, not imposed. When a cat chooses to sit in your lap, it does so without asking for conversation, without demanding eye contact, without expecting emotional performance. And when it leaves, it doesn't require an explanation. That quiet respect for boundaries creates something rare: connection without intrusion. Research into cat-human relationships shows something interesting. People who love cats are not avoiding intimacy. They're avoiding pressure. They want closeness that develops naturally, without urgency, without demands. And cats model that perfectly. They show, through their behavior, that attachment doesn't need constant proof. With cats, affection is something you earn and maintain through attention and sensitivity. You learn to read the smallest signals: a flick of the tail, a shift in posture, a subtle change in breathing. Over time, the relationship becomes rooted in respect, not control. Consent becomes central to the entire dynamic. Affection isn't assumed. It's negotiated quietly through awareness. And for people who have experienced their boundaries being ignored or crossed, that kind of relationship matters deeply. Before thoughts appear, before we interpret anything, before emotions even have names, there is regulation. And cats happen to carry a secret advantage when it comes to that. A cat's purr vibrates at slow, rhythmic frequencies, and your nervous system responds to those frequencies instinctively. Before your mind even recognizes comfort, your body begins to slow down. Breathing deepens. Muscles release tension. Stress hormones begin to drop. Low, repetitive frequencies signal safety to the brain. They tell your nervous system that nothing urgent is happening. No action required, no vigilance necessary, just presence. For people who spend much of their lives managing emotional environments, that kind of regulation is rare. Silence can sometimes feel empty. Noise can feel overwhelming. But the steady vibration of a purr sits right in the middle. It fills the space without invading it. And that's why so many cat people describe a strange kind of grounding that's hard to put into words. They don't feel excited. They feel settled, as if their inner rhythm has finally aligned with the pace of the world around them. This is regulation shared between two nervous systems, without words. Comfort that exists without performance. And your body learns this quickly. Once your nervous system recognizes that a certain presence helps bring it back into balance, attachment forms naturally. Now let's talk about the intelligence part. Yes, studies do show that people who love cats often score higher on cognitive tests, but it's not because cats somehow make you smarter. It's because certain personality traits tend to cluster together. People who lean toward introversion usually spend more time in solitary intellectual activities, reading, writing, thinking, sometimes even sitting quietly, contemplating the strange existential weight of modern life, while a cat purrs directly on top of your keyboard. Research from Denise Quastella at Carroll University highlighted this pattern clearly. Cat lovers scored higher in cognitive ability and openness to experience. But we also scored higher in neuroticism. So in simple terms, we're basically anxious walking encyclopedias with a few attachment quirks. And somehow we've learned to live with that. But the deeper reason cats and thinkers often go together is simpler than it seems. Deep thinking needs something very specific: uninterrupted attention, reflection, creativity, problem solving. All of those processes depend on long stretches of mental quiet. Cats don't interrupt that. They exist beside your focus without demanding it. They don't pull your attention outward. They don't require constant interaction. Their presence fills a room without breaking your concentration. That's one reason so many writers, artists, and thinkers throughout history have gravitated toward cats. Not because cats increase intelligence, but because they preserve the conditions that allow intelligence to work. Modern culture tends to treat solitude like a problem that needs fixing. Quiet is often interpreted as loneliness. But for people who love cats, quiet is often where clarity appears. There's also a biological reason cats trigger such a powerful instinct to care for them, even though they're extremely capable predators. Your brain reacts to something ethologists call the baby schema. Certain visual features activate automatic caregiving responses. Large eyes relative to the face, a rounded head, a small nose, soft, gentle movements. When the brain detects those traits, it triggers nurturing impulses before conscious thought even begins. Domestic cats happen to match this pattern surprisingly well. So when a cat looks up at you, your brain briefly registers something closer to infant than hunter. For many cat people, this dynamic feels safe because it flows mostly in one direction. Care moves outward without heavy emotional demands coming back. The cat doesn't require you to be cheerful. It doesn't ask for reassurance. It doesn't constantly monitor your mood. And for people who learned early in life to keep their emotions contained, nurturing something that doesn't intrude can feel easier than receiving that care themselves. It creates closeness without overwhelming vulnerability. But maybe the most important realization about cat people is this: in the end, this was never really about cats. It was about the kind of nervous system you have and the kind of environment where that nervous system feels safest. If you feel drawn to cats, it doesn't mean you're distant. It doesn't mean you're disconnected. It often means you're wired for subtlety, for presence without pressure, for connection that doesn't demand constant emotional output. Cats never ask you to perform. They don't test your loyalty. They don't confuse intensity with intimacy. They simply exist beside you. And for some people, that quiet kind of companionship is exactly what allows them to feel human again. There's something quietly radical about loving a creature that doesn't need you. In a culture obsessed with being needed, being important, being essential, cat people chose something different. We chose to love something that stays, not out of dependency, but out of preference. So the next time your cat ignores you for 6 hours and then suddenly demands your full attention the moment you sit down, Remember something. You're not just a cat owner. You're someone whose nervous system discovered exactly what it needed to function without overload. Your cat didn't only choose you. Your body chose your cat too. If this resonated with you, consider subscribing. And if you'd like to support more deep dives like this, you can join the channel as a member. I would truly appreciate your support.